Commander Elena Santos stood at the viewport of the ETS Hyperion, watching Earth's gleaming orbital rings fade into the distance. Her reflection showed a woman hardened by 2 decades of military service, dark eyes carrying the weight of humanity's most ambitious operation. The quantum tablet in her hands displayed a simple message: Stormbreaker is go. The Galactic Assembly's rejection of Earth's membership petition last month had been exactly what they'd expected. Their diplomats had sneered at humanity's primitive technology, dismissed their aggressive culture, and patronizingly suggested they spend another century evolving before trying again. They never suspected that every diplomatic meeting, every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange over the past 5 years had been carefully orchestrated to map their weaknesses. Status report, Santos commanded, turning to face the bridge crew of Earth's most advanced stealth vessel. Lieutenant Rhea Patel's fingers danced across her holographic interface. Quantum masking holding steady, Commander. The Assembly's sensor networks still read us as background radiation. A slight smile crossed her face. They're so convinced of their technological superiority, they never considered someone might find a way around it. That's their first mistake, Santos replied, moving to the tactical display. It showed thousands of tiny dots scattered throughout assembly space, quantum probes disguised as routine merchant traffic, each one gathering data on the assembly's supposedly impenetrable network. How many nodes have we mapped? 87% of their primary network, 63% of their secure diplomatic channels, reported Chief Technology Officer James Wong. His augmented eyes glowed faintly as he processed the incoming data streams. Their entire system is built on the assumption that quantum encryption is unbreakable. They never considered that breaking it wasn't necessary. We just needed to understand how it worked. Santos nodded. The Assembly's greatest strength was also its greatest vulnerability. They'd spent millennia building a civilization on perfectly predictable quantum networks, making their technology so advanced it had become rigid. They couldn't conceive of anyone approaching problems differently than they did. Message from Director Chen at Quantum Operations, Patil announced. Phase 1 preparations are complete. They're ready to begin on your mark. Santos took a moment to appreciate the irony. The Assembly had rejected Earth partly because they considered human technology crude and unpredictable. They were about to learn why unpredictability could be a devastating weapon. Signal all teams, she ordered. Operation Stormbreaker commences in 30 minutes. Remind everyone, no direct attacks, no obvious interference. We're not here to break their system. We're here to let it break itself. The plan was elegantly simple. Earth's quantum probes would introduce tiny irregularities into the Assembly's networks. Nothing large enough to trigger alarms, just enough to make their perfect system slightly less perfect. Their own protocols would detect these microscopic errors and attempt to correct them, but the corrections would introduce new irregularities, a cascade of minute adjustments, each one making the problem incrementally worse. Director Chen's team has identified the optimal points of interference, Wong reported, highlighting clusters of nodes on the tactical display. Their financial networks, transportation systems, and communication hubs are all synchronized through quantum entanglement. Once we introduce enough uncertainty, their automated systems will start fighting each other trying to maintain perfect synchronization. And the beauty of it is, Patil added, they'll never suspect outside interference. Their systems are designed to be impossible to hack or attack. They'll think it's a natural degradation of their network. Santos checked the mission clock. 20 minutes until they changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of first contact, imagining they'd either find friends among the stars or face alien invaders. Instead, they'd found something perhaps more dangerous, a civilization so convinced of its own perfection that it had lost the ability to adapt. Final checks on all systems, she commanded. I want every probe ready to activate the moment we give the signal. The Assembly is about to learn that humanity doesn't need their approval to reshape the galaxy. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each member knowing their role in the upcoming operation. They were about to wage a war unlike any in human history, not with weapons or armies, but with uncertainty itself. "Commander," Wong called out, receiving final confirmation from all field teams. "Probes are in position and calibrated. We're ready." Santos took her command chair, feeling the weight of the moment. The Assembly had given humanity a choice: spend a century proving they deserved to join galactic civilization, or remain isolated on their home world. They were about to demonstrate that humanity had a third option, one the Assembly had never considered possible. "Send the activation signal," she ordered. "Let's show them why they should have taken our application more seriously." Across Assembly space, thousands of quantum probes simultaneously activated, each introducing a precisely calculated imperfection into the galaxy's most perfect network. The downfall of the Assembly's ordered universe began not with a bang, but with a whisper of uncertainty rippling through the quantum realm. Operation Stormbreaker had begun. The Assembly was about to discover that sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't the ability to destroy a system, but the ability to make it destroy itself. Humanity's revenge would be subtle, elegant, and absolute. The galaxy was about to change forever, and the Assembly wouldn't even know what hit them until it was far too late. Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers moved in practiced gestures through the holographic interface of Luna Base's Quantum Control Center. Around him, walls of data streams painted the darkened room in shifting blues and greens, each representing thousands of quantum fluctuations now cascading through the Assembly's networks. "Status report on primary financial hubs," he called out to his team. The massive underground facility housed Earth's finest quantum physicists and programmers, all focused on orchestrating the most sophisticated cyber operation in human history. Dr. Sarah Hassan, lead network analyst, responded without looking up from her station. "Assembly trading systems are experiencing unexplained delays. Their automated correction protocols are exactly as predictable as we theorized. Each attempt to fix the quantum synchronization issues is making the problem exponentially worse." Chen allowed himself a small smile. The Assembly's greatest weakness wasn't in their technology. It was in their inability to conceive of imperfection as a weapon. Their quantum systems were designed to maintain absolute precision, treating any deviation as an error to be corrected. They never imagined someone would intentionally introduce controlled chaos into their perfect order. New alert from the Centauri monitoring station called out Dr. James Rodriguez, his augmented vision systems processing multiple data streams simultaneously. Assembly emergency protocols are activating. They're increasing power to their quantum repeaters, trying to force synchronization across their entire network. "Exactly as predicted," Chen nodded. "They're following their standard procedures perfectly. How long until the power increase triggers the secondary cascade?" At current escalation rates, Hassan consulted her quantum models. Less than 6 hours. Their own security systems will begin fighting each other, each one detecting the other's correction attempts as potential threats. The plan was proceeding even better than they'd hoped. The Assembly's rigid protocols were turning their greatest strength, their perfectly ordered systems, into a devastating weakness. Every automated attempt to restore order was creating more chaos, but in such subtle ways that their AIs couldn't detect the pattern. "Message from Commander Santos on the Hyperion," Rodriguez announced. "Operation Stormbreaker's Phase 2 is ready for activation. They're asking for confirmation that our systems are prepared for the surge." Chen moved to the central control platform, where a real-time model of the Assembly's quantum network floated in the air. Thousands of interconnected nodes pulsed with activity, their perfect synchronization already beginning to fray around the edges. Phase 2 would transform those small imperfections into a galaxy-wide cascade of system failures. "Begin final preparations for Phase 2, he ordered. "I want every quantum sensor calibrated to detect the slightest hint that they've discovered our presence. Remember, the moment they realize this isn't a natural phenomenon, everything changes." The team worked with practiced efficiency, their movements choreographed by months of preparation. They were soldiers in a new kind of war, fighting not with weapons but with uncertainty itself. Their battlefield wasn't physical space, but the quantum realm where the assembly civilization functioned. Dr. Chen, Hassan called out urgently, detecting increased activity in the assembly's central AI cluster. They're attempting to implement new synchronization protocols. Chen moved to her station, studying the incoming data. Show me the pattern analysis. The holographic display expanded, revealing complex waves of quantum adjustments rippling through the assembly's network. Their AIs were finally beginning to detect that something was wrong, but their response was exactly what Earth had anticipated. They were trying to impose even stricter order on their systems. They still think this is a natural degradation of their network, Chen observed. Their response protocols are actually accelerating the cascade effect. Notify Commander Santos. We're ready for Phase 2. As the message was sent, Chen reflected on the irony of their situation. The Assembly had rejected Earth's membership petition because they considered human technology too unpredictable, too chaotic. They were about to learn that chaos, properly applied, could be the most powerful force in the universe. Phase 2 authorization received. Rodriguez announced. Commander Santos gives us the green light. Chen took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. With a few commands, they would push the Assembly's perfect system past the point of no return. Their civilization had spent millennia building an order so precise it had become brittle, and now humanity would demonstrate why adaptability was more valuable than perfection. Initiate Phase 2, he commanded. Let's show them what real chaos looks like. Across Lunabase's Quantum Control Center, dozens of specialists activated their prepared sequences. The subtle irregularities they'd introduced into the Assembly's network began to multiply, each one triggering cascading reactions that their AIs would desperately try to correct, only to make things worse. The digital uprising had begun. The Assembly was about to discover that their quest for perfect order had left them defenseless against an enemy who embraced chaos as a tool. Their rigid protocols and predictable responses would become the instruments of their own downfall. As Chen watched the cascade effect spread across the galactic network, he knew the Assembly would never be the same. Humanity wasn't just fighting for recognition anymore. They were rewriting the rules of how civilizations interact. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most powerful force isn't perfect order, but controlled chaos in the hands of those who understand how to use it. First Speaker Valoran's crystalline appendages trembled as she stared at the chaos unfolding across the Grand Assembly's quantum displays. The massive chamber, normally a model of serene order with its soaring crystal spires and perfectly synchronized data flows, had descended into unprecedented disorder. Impossible, she whispered, her translator crystals vibrating with distress. The quantum networks cannot fail. They are perfect. They have been perfect for 10,000 cycles. Junior Counselor Zixtal watched from his lower observation pod, his analytical mind racing to understand what his superior refused to accept. The science had been there for days. Minute discrepancies in financial transactions, microscopic delays in transportation networks, tiny errors in communication protocols, each one insignificant alone. But together, they painted a picture that chilled his core processors. Honorable First Speaker, he ventured, breaking protocol to address her directly. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that this is not a natural degradation of our networks. Valoran's sensory clusters turned toward him, radiating disapproval. You suggest sabotage. Impossible. Our quantum systems are beyond interference. No civilization in the Assembly has the capability to. No civilization in the Assembly. Zixtal interrupted, knowing his career might end for this breach of etiquette. But what about those we excluded? The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of quantum data streams seemed to pause. Every member of the Assembly knew what he meant. Their recent rejection of the upstart species from the Spiral Arm's third planet. The humans lack the technological sophistication to even understand our quantum networks. Second Speaker Krenthor objected, his crystalline form pulsing with certainty. Their petition demonstrated their primitive nature. They still rely on binary computing, for first light's sake. Zixtal moved his observation pod closer to the central display. Yet their petition process allowed them unprecedented access to our networks. Access we granted because we were certain they couldn't possibly comprehend our technology, let alone affect it. New alerts flashed across the quantum displays. The cascade of system failures was accelerating. Assembly worlds were reporting complete disruption of trading systems, transportation networks grinding to halt, communication channels dissolving into quantum static. Even if you were correct, Valoran said, her tone suggesting the impossibility of such a notion, our security protocols would detect any external interference. The humans cannot. What if they're not interfering? Zixtal suggested. What if they found a way to make our systems interfere with themselves? The concept was so alien that several counselors' crystalline forms briefly lost coherence. The idea that someone would deliberately introduce imperfection into a system was anathema to assembly thinking. Explain, Valoran demanded, her previous disapproval forgotten in the face of escalating crisis. We built our civilization on the principle of perfect quantum synchronization, Zixtal explained. Every system is designed to maintain absolute precision. But what if someone introduced controlled uncertainty? Our protocols would detect the imperfections and attempt to correct them, creating new imperfections in the process. Second speaker Krenfor finished, his crystalline form dulling with horror. A cascade effect. Our own protocols would amplify the disruption, each correction making the problem worse. A new wave of alerts swept through the chamber. Major trading hubs were going dark, their quantum networks torn apart by their own security systems' desperate attempts to maintain perfect order. If this is true, Valoran said, her voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of assembly history, then we dramatically underestimated the humans. Their petition, their apparent technological backwardness. A deception, Zixtal confirmed. While we dismissed them as primitives, they were studying us, learning how our perfect systems could be turned against themselves. The assembly chamber, the pinnacle of galactic civilization's achievement, seemed suddenly vulnerable. Its crystal spires and quantum networks no longer represented unassailable advancement, but rather a rigidity that clever primitives had learned to exploit. We must contact their representatives, Valoran declared. Offer immediate negotiation. First speaker, Zixtal interrupted again, past caring about protocol. I don't believe we're in a position to offer anything. Look at the pattern of failures. They're not random. They're systematic, precise. The humans aren't just disrupting our civilization. They're demonstrating complete control over our networks. The truth of his words resonated through the chamber like a death knell. The assembly, in its quest for perfect order, had created a system so rigid it could be shattered by carefully applied chaos. They had dismissed humanity as primitive because they didn't understand that adaptability, not perfection, was the true measure of advancement. They will contact us, Zixtal continued, watching new failure alerts cascade across the displays. Not to negotiate, but to dictate terms. And we will accept them, because they've proven they can destroy our civilization without firing a single shot. As if summoned by his words, every quantum display in the chamber suddenly cleared. A simple message appeared, transmitted simultaneously across every surviving network in assembly space. The assembly will reconvene in one standard cycle to discuss the terms of humanity's membership. Attendance is not optional. The perfect order of the assembly had been broken, and in its place, a new force was rising. One that understood that true power lay not in rigid perfection, but in the ability to wield chaos itself as a weapon. Commander Elena Santos strode into the assembly's grand chamber with measured steps, her boots silent against the crystalline floor. The entire council watched, their crystalline forms dimmed with what she recognized as fear. Gone was their previous condescension, replaced by the dawning realization of just how thoroughly they'd been outmaneuvered. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Chen carried a simple quantum tablet, the only human technology they'd brought into this sanctum of advanced alien civilization. They didn't need anything else. The Assembly's own systems would serve their purpose perfectly. Honorable Council, Santos began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. 3 standard months ago, you rejected Earth's petition for membership in the Galactic Assembly. You cited our technological immaturity, our unpredictable nature, and our potential for disrupting the established order. She paused, allowing a small smile to cross her face. In the interest of diplomatic clarity, I'm here to demonstrate just how right you were about that last part. First speaker Valoran's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained anxiety. Commander Santos, your species has committed an unprecedented act of aggression against the Assembly. Our networks. Your networks are operating exactly as we wish them to. Santos interrupted. Dr. Chen, would you please demonstrate? Chen activated the quantum tablet. Instantly, every display in the chamber transformed, showing real-time data streams of the Assembly's compromised systems. Each screen highlighted critical networks, trading hubs, and communication channels that now danced to humanity's tune. As you can see, Chen explained, his tone professionally neutral, we've achieved complete integration with your quantum networks. Every attempt your systems have made to restore order has only increased our control. The chaos you've witnessed was simply a demonstration of capability. Junior Counselor Zixtol moved his observation pod forward. You've weaponized imperfection itself, he said, a note of admiration in his translated voice. Our pursuit of perfect order made us vulnerable to controlled chaos. Finally, someone who understands. Santos nodded approvingly. Humanity hasn't survived and thrived for millennia by being perfect. We've done it by being adaptable, by turning weaknesses into strengths, by understanding that sometimes the most powerful position isn't one of perfect control, but of calculated disorder. The chamber's quantum displays shifted again, showing the full extent of humanity's infiltration. Every major system, every crucial network, every vital hub had been compromised, not through brute force attacks or sophisticated hacking, but by introducing tiny imperfections that the Assembly's own protocols had amplified into system-wide vulnerabilities. You believed your quantum networks were unbreakable, Chen continued. And you were right. We never broke them. We simply helped them break themselves. Every security measure you implemented, every correction protocol you activated, every attempt to restore perfect order, each action drove your systems further into our control. First speaker Valoran's form had lost much of its luminescence. What are your demands? Santos straightened, her expression becoming serious. Humanity will join the Assembly, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as equals who have proven their worth. We will help you rebuild your networks, better, more adaptable, more resilient. And you will acknowledge that progress comes not from achieving perfect order, but from learning to thrive in the face of chaos. And if we refuse? Second speaker Krenthor challenged, though his translated voice lacked conviction. In response, Chen tapped his tablet once more. Throughout the chamber, quantum displays flickered with cascading failure scenarios, simulations showing how quickly and completely humanity could unravel the Assembly civilization. This isn't a negotiation, Santos stated firmly. This is a demonstration of reality. You built your society on the assumption that perfect quantum synchronization was unbreakable. We've shown you that assumption was wrong. Now you have a choice: adapt and evolve with us, or maintain your rigid perfection and watch it shatter. The council chamber fell silent. Countless crystalline forms dimmed and brightened as the Assembly members communicated in their native quantum pulses, processing the magnitude of their situation. Finally, first speaker Valoran moved to the center of the chamber. The Assembly recognizes that we may have misinterpreted humanity's potential. We accept your terms, Commander Santos. The human species will be granted full membership status, effective immediately. Santos nodded, satisfaction evident in her bearing. Excellent choice. Dr. Chen's team will begin working with your quantum specialists to stabilize your networks. Remember this moment, Honorable Council. It's not just about humanity joining your assembly. It's about understanding that true advancement comes from embracing change, not resisting it. As she turned to leave the chamber, Santos caught sight of Junior Counselor Zixtal's brightening form. At least one member of the assembly had already begun to understand the lesson humanity had taught them. In a universe of infinite possibilities, perfect order was not just impossible, it was undesirable. The game was over. Checkmate had been achieved not through force or superior technology, but through the elegant application of chaos theory to a civilization that had forgotten how to adapt. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by following the Assembly's rules, but by rewriting them entirely. One standard year after humanity's induction into the Galactic Assembly, the changes were impossible to ignore. The once rigid crystal spires of Assembly Central now pulsed with dynamic energy patterns, their quantum networks embracing controlled variability rather than fighting against it. Dr. Marcus Chen stood beside Commander Santos on the observation deck, watching ships from 100 species navigate the busy space lanes below. Among them, Earth vessels were easily distinguishable, not by any technological superiority, but by their unpredictable flight patterns that somehow created a more efficient traffic flow. The latest reports from the Integration Committee are fascinating, Chen remarked, scrolling through his quantum tablet. Assembly worlds that have adopted our hybrid network protocols are showing a 300% increase in processing efficiency. Turns out a little chaos is good for business. Santos smiled, remembering the initial resistance to human methods. Amazing how quickly they adapted once they understood we weren't trying to destroy their system, just help it evolve. Below them, Junior Counselor Zixtal, now promoted to head of technological integration, emerged from his transport pod. His crystalline form had changed over the past year, adopting a more fluid structure that reflected the Assembly's new philosophy. Commander, Doctor, he greeted them, his translator crystals perfectly sensed. The Council has just approved the final phase of the Great Integration. Every Assembly world will begin implementing quantum chaos protocols within the next cycle. And how are the traditionalists taking it? Santos asked, though she already knew the answer. Change never came without resistance. Zixtal's form rippled with what they'd learned was amusement. They're adapting, as we all must. It's difficult to argue with success. Our trading networks are more robust than ever. Our computational systems have achieved levels of efficiency we thought impossible, and our society. He paused, searching for the right words. Our society is alive in ways it hasn't been for millennia. Chen nodded in understanding. Because you're no longer fighting against the natural state of the universe. Perfect order is stagnation. Life itself exists in the balance between chaos and structure. The observation deck's quantum displays shifted, showing real-time data from across assembly space. Where once there had been rigid patterns of information flow, now there was a beautiful dance of ordered chaos, systems adapting and evolving in response to changing conditions. The younger species are particularly enthusiastic, Zixtal continued. 3 more civilizations have petitioned for membership since we began implementing human protocols. They see the assembly as progressive now, rather than stagnant. Santos moved to the edge of the deck, looking out at the vast expanse of space. That was always our goal, you know. Not just to force our way in, but to demonstrate that true strength comes from adaptability. The assembly had grown too perfect, too rigid. You'd forgotten how to change. A lesson we won't forget again, Zixtal assured them. Though I must admit, some of us are concerned about what other surprises humanity might have in store. Chen and Santos exchanged knowing looks. That's the beauty of it, Chen replied. We don't plan surprises. We create environments where positive change can emerge naturally. The assembly taught us about the power of unity. We taught you about the strength of diversity. As if to emphasize his point, a new alert appeared on their displays. Another quantum chaos protocol had spontaneously emerged in the Assembly's trading networks, creating even more efficient pathways for information flow. The system wasn't just accepting change now, it was generating improvements on its own. A perfect metaphor for our partnership, Santos observed. The Assembly's ordered foundation combined with humanity's embrace of controlled chaos. Together, we're building something neither of us could have achieved alone. Zixtal's form brightened with pride. The Council has officially designated this past year as the beginning of the Assembly's second age. The chronicles will record that it began when a species we dismissed as primitive taught us the most advanced lesson of all. That perfection is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to thrive within it. As the three of them watched the bustling activity of Assembly Central, Santos reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through military might or technological superiority, but by understanding a fundamental truth. The most powerful force in the universe wasn't order or chaos, but the wisdom to know how to balance both. The new order they'd created wasn't perfect, and that was precisely why it worked. In embracing imperfection, the Assembly had found a path to genuine progress. The galaxy was changing, evolving, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. And somewhere in that endless dance between order and chaos, humanity had found its true calling, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as teachers, showing the galaxy that the greatest achievements come not from imposing perfect order, but from learning to dance with chaos itself.